Hi everyone, welcome to Mini Scroll, the daily internet culture podcast bringing you the biggest stories from social media, the creator economy, and the digital space every Monday through Thursday. I'm your host, Lauren Meisner, the founder of the youth digital media brand, Centennial World. Welcome back to Mini Scroll, everyone. Okay. First of all, we got a filter for the mic, so hopefully that will help with some of the mouth sounds if you guys hear those and don't like those. And this is the extent that we can go to for now. So we can't afford to change our studio location, the configuration of it. We can't afford to get anyone in to help with like the sound quality. I know we've had some recommendations of getting like sound engineers in, like we just can't afford that. So this is what we can afford, a pop filter. I hope it helps. The next thing I wanted to say is we had our podcast network launch event party thing on Thursday and it went so well. Thank you guys so much for the well wishes. You guys can see photos of that on Instagram, on my Instagram, and on our community tab on YouTube. Obviously, I knew it would all come together. I know that's how it works. I know everything is really stressful until like the minute that it starts and it all comes together. But for real, it was so stressful. Like I can't even tell you. I'm really, really happy. And I hope you guys are loving High Stakes. I know a lot of you guys are. So please go listen to High Stakes on Spotify, Apple, or on YouTube if you guys haven't listened yet. The girls are amazing. And there will be 10 more weeks of High Stakes episodes every Thursday for you guys. So go subscribe. All right, let's get into the stories for today. The first story that I have for you guys, this is kind of niche, but I feel there's like a lesson here for us. So tarot creator Alix Reads Tarot has been threatened with a lawsuit over an online impersonator. So Alix Reads Tarot is a very popular spiritual creator with nearly 900,000 followers. She's based in Scotland, I believe, or at least somewhere in the UK. And she basically does like daily tarot card readings and readings based on zodiac signs and things like that. Okay, so a few days ago, Alix came online crying, saying that she was being threatened with legal action over something she didn't do. A man was threatening to sue her or to take legal action, something, because his wife was scammed by someone impersonating Alix. And even though it was made clear to him that it was not Alix who had scammed his wife, he was basically saying Alix was at fault because she was being impersonated. And he also said he was going to take this to like the US Constitution, which it doesn't make any sense. It was very clear that this man was like unhinged, had not sought any legal counsel yet, and was just taking out, his frustrations on Alix. Alix's video, which has since been taken down, it was so sad. Like she was crying. She was like, I'm only 22. And obviously she was worried that this was going to basically like ruin her whole life. I can't even tell you guys, like nothing is worse than legal troubles. Like it is soul crushing. Anyway, so it's been a few days since then. And it seems that she has some legal advice and she's no longer kind of panicked about all of this. Basically, she said she's putting more stuff in place behind the scenes to prevent scammers. But at the end of the day, she was saying that there has to be some onus on the general public or like users in general to do their due diligence before sending people money online. For example, she did a video where you could tell, or she was like teaching us how to be able to tell when it's a scammer account versus her account. And like the scammer accounts, you can tell the videos have been downloaded because they have the watermark on them, they're poor quality, they don't have the right email address in the name, like compared to her email address. There are a lot of signs that it's not, actually her. So this is a really common problem in spiritual talk / like tarot talk and that whole side of the internet. I'm not kidding. If you follow or engage with one of these accounts and some of their videos, you will all of a sudden be followed by and messaged by their scammer accounts. And they will be like, do you want a private reading? Or like, the cards told me to reach out to you. Spirit guide told me to reach out to you. They have a message for you, and basically convince you to pay them money to do like a quote unquote private reading. And that's why when you are on that side of TikTok, so many of those big creators will say like, I will never reach out to you. This is my only account. You can only find me here. Like message me or like email me here. I don't have any other emails or any other accounts, whatever. It's kind of like the TikTok version of those chainmail emails that we would get where it's like, I'm a Nigerian prince and I need $10,000. Like stuff like that. It's like similar to that. But I think with spiritual talk, I imagine it could be even more predatory because the content already kind of preys on people's vulnerabilities. And like, I know a lot of creators on that side of the internet aren't doing it with malice. Like, I understand that not everyone who is like reading tarot on TikTok is trying to be like predatory in their content, but I think people seek out this type of content and engage with this type of content when they are in a vulnerable or bad place because it gives them some hope or guidance, right? And so the scammers who are impersonating these creators and reaching out to these followers, offering private readings or whatever, it's a more vulnerable group of people than the followings of like other types of creators if they were trying to scam, I don't know, like the followers of like Acquired Style or something. It's just like a different demographic. But that's obviously why these scams are so prevalent on Spiritual Talk, because scammers know that they can actually get something from the followers of these accounts because those people, like I said, are kind of in a vulnerable place sometimes. I do think we will unfortunately start to see this more and more, and I'm interested to hear what you guys think in terms of like where the onus lies, because I agree with Alix to an extent that we need to have some more literacy and ownership of like what we are consuming online and what we're believing and whatever. And like, these creators can't necessarily be held responsible for people impersonating them, but there's also, in my opinion, a bit of onus on the fact that these creators are building massive followings of essentially very vulnerable people. So that inherently might pose some problems for them, regardless if it was like scamming or whatever. I think they're kind of playing with fire like to begin with. Okay, the next story that I have for you guys, some more news about Alix's. Alex Cooper has personally addressed Alix Earle and the podcast drama and the Unwell Network and all of that for the first time. The saga that truly never ends. So off the back of one of the high stakes episodes, actually, that was launched last week on the Alex Cooper, Alix Earle, Sophia Franklin feuds, there is a new development in Alix Earle leaving the Unwell Network. So last week, Alix Earle posted a TikTok in which she revealed she would be taking a break from her podcast.
I have to put a pause on podcasting right now for the foreseeable future. I don't really want to get into the details of it all, and I kind of can't get into the details of it all right now, but I've loved it so much, and I'm really proud of what I built with the podcast. And those of you who come back every week and listen and watch, I love you so much, and I don't want to just like leave you astray and not leave you with anything, and I also think I would lose my mind.
This led fans to jump to conclusions that Alex Cooper didn't let Alix Earle walk away with her IP. So the IP for a podcast is basically like your feed, like your RSS feed. I mean, it can include other things too, but you know, the most valuable would be like your back catalog and the actual feed itself, so that people don't have to go subscribe somewhere else to hear your podcast. So it would be like the name Hot Mess, like all the back catalog, existing episodes, cover art, like all of that stuff. So Unwell may have owned the IP, the rights to the IP of Hot Mess. So when Alix Earle left Unwell, she may not have been allowed to take the podcast with her, basically, and she would have had to start from scratch. That's what people assumed Alix meant. People had a big issue with this because, as we know, Alex Cooper's whole thing in the Call Her Daddy saga was that it was so important for her to keep the IP, and that's actually what, like, essentially broke her and Sophia up, is that she highly prioritized the ability to walk away with the IP, whereas Sophia was highly prioritizing a paycheck in the now. But now, after being inundated with comments, I imagine, about the hypocrisy of this all, Alex Cooper made a statement on her Instagram story. Alex said, "Hi, I see your comments. Alex not being able to podcast has nothing to do with Unwell. I don't know why she can't / what's going on. Unwell gave her everything back. She owns her IP, learned from the best," and then she tagged Dave Portnoy. As we know, Dave Portnoy gave Alex Cooper the IP to Call Her Daddy after fulfilling her contract. So now Alix Earle is doing vlogs. I think that makes more sense for her anyways. I have no idea what could be going on with her podcast, but I think the vlog route makes more sense for her anyway. She's a much better storyteller, I think, in my opinion, in like a visual format. So I wanted to talk about how Chappell Roan said all of her friends who have kids are in hell. So Chappell went on Call Her Daddy last week, and during one question, she had quite the controversial take when she spoke about her stance on parenthood.
All of my friends who have kids are in hell. I actually don't know anyone who's like happy and has children. at this age?
Okay, so I could come at this from so many angles, but I was really thinking about like this episode would turn into actually 3 hours long if I was to cover everything that I wanted to say. So I'm going to cover it exclusively from like Chappell saying her friends are in hell and like the context of that. So for your information, I am married, I'm 33, I have a dog, I own an apartment. Like, I am the target person to be having a child. Like, I am, like, in theory, like, the person who should be having a child, like, tomorrow. And because of that, I get so much content related to motherhood, and I also get tons of content related to child-free women. So, Chappell's comments have really turned into this argument online between parents, mostly mothers, and child-free people, mostly child-free women. And already there is so much friction there between those two groups online, like constantly. So now there's this trend where women who are mothers are posting clips with, their kids or whatever, having the best time ever, and they're putting Chappell's audio over top of it, or they're doing like a slideshow of photos of them like child-free, looking like sad, disheveled, whatever, and then happy when they have their kid. And then the child-free people, especially those who make content about this, are like, why can't you just admit that being a parent is really hard? Like, there's so much negativity around there. Like, we're choosing not to have kids for a reason because we see how hard it is. Whatever, okay? So it's become like this whole thing. But something that I think is missing from actually all of this, like Chappell's take, the women who are like, motherhood is magical, and the child-free women who are like, I make this content to show women that they have a choice and they don't need to become mothers and they can have a fulfilling, full life without that, is the fact that so many women do not have the privilege of realistically not becoming a mother or like not prioritizing getting married and having children. And I don't even mean from like a reproductive rights perspective, but that's obviously also included in this and like a whole other separate conversation. But I just mean like, okay, if I'm going to think about my experience, for example, I actually don't have that many friends that have kids despite being 33 years old. And a huge part of that is because I grew up in a really affluent area. And the women that I know growing up, like my friends and also the women, like our mothers and stuff, like there was not a priority or a focus on getting married and having children. That was obviously like there's still societal pressure from that, but like in the context of our community, that was actually not really prioritized. Like I was raised and my friends were all raised around women who prioritized education, prioritized, building a career, financial independence, traveling the world, experiencing things, dating lots of people, figuring yourself out, and having the privilege to choose if you want to get married, when you want to get married, if you want to have children, and who you have those children with. You have the privilege of choosing because you have access to money and resources and education yourself. You have the privilege of choosing a partner who can be 50-50 because you have time, you have resources, you have money. So that's something that I think is often missing from this is that for like my friends that do have children, or even for like the mothers that I saw growing up, my own mom, my friends' moms, like they were not in hell. But that's because they had access to things that gave them privileges where they had the options to choose. Like they could choose how they had children, when they had children, what that looked like for them. And so same with my friends that have kids now. Like I'm sure they're in hell sometimes. I'm sure it is hell. I truly believe that having a child is the hardest thing that anyone can do. Like I really do believe that to my core. And I believe that they are in hell sometimes. But as a general kind of, blanket statement, no, I do not see a lot of women in my life in hell all the time being a mother. I see much more commonly depictions of what I'm seeing on TikTok of these moms like loving their babies and having a great time and having like equal partnership and education and access to resources and help and money and family and like whatever. And that's because of like the socioeconomic circumstances that we all grew up in and therefore have kind of moved through the world with. Because I think for a lot of women in the world who don't have access to those things and choices like that, motherhood probably is hell. But just because it's hell also doesn't mean that they wouldn't do it again. And I do feel like this is an insane comparison. But I'm going to compare having the business to having a child, okay? Don't come for me, parents. But, I look at like entrepreneurship and it is like actually hell. Like it is like the worst thing I've ever done, but it's also like the best thing I've ever done. And if you asked me about like if I would ever do it again, even though I have had the lowest moments of my entire life doing it, I would say 100% yes every single time. And if you asked me, should I start my own business, I would kind of be like, oh my God, like maybe not. But I would also think about all the amazing things that have come from this. And I would be like, yeah, like if you have an itch, scratch it, like chase it, because it's going to be worth it. Even if you crash and burn, what happens along the way eventually will be worth it. So there is also complexity. Like sometimes I find these like child-free accounts or just like women who are child-free online talk about like, it's so one-dimensional the way that they look at motherhood. And they say like, all we hear is negative stories about motherhood. Like it sounds horrific. And yeah, we do hear a lot of negative stories about motherhood. But at the same time, like, can we not appreciate that it's a much more nuanced, like, complex experience than just, this one moment in time I'm filming a video talking about how being a mother is so hard. But there's so much more underneath the surface that happens. It's probably impossible to describe. Like genuinely, I find that with the business. I can't even imagine what it's like to have a child. Like, to describe the experience of being an entrepreneur, to describe the experience of parenthood and how complex that is. So I also think it is reductive of some of the mothers that are showing off like the most amazing parts of parenthood, motherhood, and in this trend or whatever, and saying it's like amazing, it's like the best thing I've ever done. But then of course, like I said, I think everybody could use a little bit of like thinking a little bit deeper about this, some critical thinking around the comments that Chappell made based on like where she's from, where her friends that she's like referring to are probably still living. She's quite young still to have children, or like for her friends to be having children. So, I think all of that like cultural context as well is really important when you're thinking about comments that people are making about having children and how hard it is. I've also seen some insane comparisons about people being like, oh, when you say like your job, like being a neurosurgeon is so hard, like I could never do it or whatever, like really whatever is like a really hard job, I could never do it. And then, you never hear people who are in that job get offended by that. And I understand why people are like comparing those things. It's like, when you say like motherhood seems so hard, like I could never, and then moms get upset and they, start making videos like this and stuff. But like a child is not like a job. Like it's not something you're like clocking into. It's not a career. It can be like, of course, being a mother is a job and it is a career, but it's also, nurturing, taking care of, teaching, growing, like just everything around like a human being. Like it is so much more complex than just comparing it to another job. So it's not a one-to-one again. And I think it's okay for us to do hard things and complain about doing those hard things and not tell people like, well, this was your choice. Like you did this to yourself. Because like when I think about now I'm just like on a tangent, you guys. I'm sorry. I didn't want to like tell you all of my thoughts. But if I think about the business, anytime I talk about how difficult it is to my friends, family, whoever, even you guys, all the comments, everything that everyone ever says is like, keep going. You're doing such an amazing job. I know it's hard, but like it's going to pay off, whatever. But when moms talk about how difficult it is, a choice they made, just like me, I chose to start this business, a choice they made, they get shit on and told like, well, this is what you signed up for. This is what you chose. Not me out here like defending all of the moms right now. I don't even know where I'm going with this. Like my thoughts are so scattered because I'm very impassioned clearly. And yes, I do not think it's helpful when child-free people, including myself, talk about how, they're trying to show what life could be like for women if they choose not to have children, because that is such a small subset of the population of women around the world who realistically have the privilege to make that choice, who are educated enough, affluent enough, don't exist in certain cultures where it's like completely, like they'd be completely shunned if they didn't get married and have children, like whatever it is. And so sometimes I also feel like that's really reductive. Okay, I need to stop. I don't really have one final point there. Like, I don't know how to tie this all up. I just think the fighting between these groups of people is so frustrating. I'm constantly on this side of the internet because of obviously like my demographic and stuff. And I just think it's exhausting. And also, people don't really talk like this in real life. So I think we need to remember that. But yes, okay. Anyways, guys, that's it for today. I'm sorry for all of this. I love you guys. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Please subscribe to High Stakes. I love you, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.